Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon TCG Pocket video here on iStarly TV. So today I wanted to talk about all of the EX Pokemon in Space-Time Smackdown, and I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a ranking of each of the EX Pokemon that was released with the Space-Time Smackdown set. It's been about a week since Space-Time Smackdown released, which is kind of crazy because it feels like longer, but we have gotten some tournament data, we have gotten some gameplay. We've seen a lot of different decks. I mean, it's not to say that the meta is completely solved right now, but of course we have an idea of what's good and what people are playing at the moment. So I'm using tournament data that we've gotten, as well as like win rates, number of decks and number of cards being played, as well as just kind of feel for how strong these cards are, and when you encounter them online, when you battle online as well. So just a lot of different factors. You know, of course, this is my list. There's some numbers here that you might not fully agree with, so feel free to disagree with me in the comments. Let me know in the comments how wrong I am about some of these. I think you'll probably agree with a lot of them, or maybe at least a few of them, but of course, for the ones that you don't agree with, let me know why, and let me know what number you would rank them. So I think we're just going to go top to bottom. We're just going to go best to worst. That just makes a lot of sense, especially because there's kind of a lot more to say about the better ones, right? So let's kind of get right to it. So at number 1, we have Darkrai EX, and that is probably the least surprising of the group. Because if you've been watching tournaments or following tournaments, it is one of the most dominant cards in the meta right now. Its ability is really, really powerful, and its ability, of course, Nightmare Aura, which allows you to do 20 damage to the opponent's active Pokemon when you put a Dark Energy on Darkrai from the Energy Zone. And this is really powerful because Darkrai itself does not need to be your active Pokemon. It can be on your bench, and you can still get this effect. So you can chip away at enemy Druddigons, which are notoriously difficult to take down. You can chip away at weak Pokemon that are trying to set up, such as Manaphy, and then next turn knock them out with your active Pokemon or whatever the case. It's just so strong to be able to do 20 damage effectively for free. It's really, really powerful. And of course, the new supporter card, Dawn, also makes this further powerful because what you can do is there are situations where you can put an energy on your Darkrai who's on the bench and do 20 damage to them, and then you can don that energy onto your active Pokemon and attack with it. So you just get to do extra damage. Pairs amazingly with Weezing, pairs amazingly with Weavile EX. I mean, it really pairs amazingly with almost anything. I mean, we've seen one of the better decks that broke out from Space-Time Smackdown is Darkrai with Magnezone, and Magnezone, of course, is an electric Pokemon, but it still works really well with Darkrai. So Darkrai EX, best EX in the set, and it could be dethroned, but at the moment, I don't think that's happening. At the moment, it is going to remain the strongest EX from Space-Time Smackdown. I think, another thing that makes Darkrai so good is it just does not require any setup. Like, really, you know, yes, you can, sometimes there's decisions on whether to put your energy on Darkrai or something else, but with cards like Dawn and other stuff like that, like, it sometimes just doesn't matter. It just does not require much setup at all. Number 2, we have Palkia EX. Palkia here is probably the clearest number 2. I mean, there's maybe arguments for some of the others, but Palkia is really strong and also is seeing a lot of play. It pairs really well with a lot of other cards in the meta right now. Notably, the new Manaphy is a perfect partner for Palkia EX. And Vaporeon from Mystical Island is also really, really strong. Of course, Palkia is a water type, so you also have Misty for free. There's just so many ways. Even though Palkia requires a lot of setup, there are really a lot of ways to just turbo out those energies onto it. And once you can attack with Palkia, you're gonna kill something. You're guaranteed, almost guaranteed to kill something. And even if you don't, you just do such massive damage. On top of that, Palkia also can attack for 1 energy. It can do 30 damage for 1 energy, which is honestly really solid. It's not huge damage at all, but the ability to, like, sometimes you'll never draw your Manaphy, you'll never draw your Misty, or you'll fail your Misty, whatever the case, and you might just need to start attacking with Palkia, and you can just do that while you're setting it up. So it just really can function on its own, but it's at its best when partnered with other really strong cards that accelerate the mana. So Palkia, I think because it does require setup, that's what makes it a little bit less strong than Darkrai, but it's still just a great card. Now I think this next kind of tier that we're looking at, the next 3 that I'm talking about, are very clearly solid and strong. The numbers or the orders might be disputable, so of course let me know in the comments what you think. Next, I have Yanmega as number 3, Yanmega EX. Yanmega EX has appeared in a couple of different decks, and notably with Yanmega, it's a really interesting case because it actually requires colorless energies to attack. So you can really put it in any deck. Even Yanma, its pre-evolution, also requires colorless energy. So even though it's a grass type, you can put it in just about any deck. Notably with Yanmega as well, it's a grass type, and Darkrai is actually weak to grass. The reasoning for that is because Darkrai is a dark type, and dark types are also weak to bug. So I think that's kind of what they're doing there, why Darkrai is weak to grass, even though that seems kind of weird. But yes, Yanmega can actually one-shot Darkrai with its move. And its move is really strong. It does 120 damage. It does require you to discard 1 energy at random, which basically means just discard an energy from it, which is fine as well, because you can just use that attack, do a massive damage, discard an energy, and then the next turn you just put the energy right back on it and do it again. So it's not really that much of a drawback. And yeah, again, the fact that there's been Yanmega Dialga decks, there's been Yanmega Executor decks. I mean, the fact that it can fit into like any type of deck means I think there's a lot of unexplored potential with it. So Yanmega is awesome. At number 4, we have Weavile EX. This is yet again another Pokemon that I'm not certain about the order. You could probably guess who number 5 is, but Weavile EX is number 4 in my ranking, and I think the biggest reason is because it does not require very much setup. It pairs really well with its pre-evolution, and of course, I think most importantly of all, it pairs very well with Darkrai EX. So playing both of these EXs in the same deck is really powerful. Weavile only requires 1 energy to attack, and then Darkrai, like you could put the 1 energy on your Sneasel or Weavile, and then after that just throw all your energies on Darkrai, and it's just racking up the damage with Weavile. Weavile does 70 damage for 1 energy at that point, and if you're adding the 20 damage from Darkrai each turn, that's effectively 90 damage a turn for just that one investment, or that investment of just 1 energy on the Weavile. Of course, you're also putting them on the Darkrai's, but still, that is very, very powerful. And again, I think if Darkrai didn't exist, Weavile would be a lot less strong. It would still be good, I think, but it would be less good than a lot of these other EXs. But simply the fact that Darkrai is there and it plays really well with Weavile is what bumps up Weavile. At number 5, we have Dialga EX. Dialga is a solid card. It's actually a pretty great card, and it can also help set up. I think the pairing that a lot of people go with is Melmetal, but there's a lot of cards it can set up. It can set up Licky EX, which is not seeing a lot of play. It can set up Yanmega EX, and just really any other like steel type that you want to set up, or any other Pokemon that requires just colorless energies to attack. I've seen Dialga and Pidgeot. I mean, I think that's the problem with Dialga, though, is it's mainly there like kind of as a setup card. You know, it does 30 damage for 2 energy, though it does set up your bench with energies. But, you know, that just seems like an inferior way to set up compared to things like Druddigon or Manaphy or Moltres, right? Like those all seem like they just have it a little bit easier. You know, in order to start setting up with Dialga, you have to have 2 energy on it. Whereas again, with Manaphy or Moltres, you just need 1. So I don't know. I think Dialga is really cool and it is pretty good, but compared to all these other really good EXs, it's not quite up there just yet. But let me know in the comments what you think of Dialga. Maybe you've been building a great Dialga deck that's been working really well for you. Let me know. All right, this next kind of tier, number 6 and number 7, I would say are... You know, there are some decks that are playing these cards, but they're not anywhere near as common as the others, and they're not anywhere near as strong as the others. So next up, I have Infernape EX, which I actually think, now that I'm looking at it, I think it sees a little bit less play than the next one that I have, but the next one can also be played in different decks. But either way, Infernape EX, I think the biggest drawback here is, once again, it is a Stage 2. It also kind of competes with Charizard EX. Now, they both do slightly different things. They both have their pros and cons, absolutely. But if you're going to play Moltres anyway, it kind of just feels like you should just be setting up Charizard, because Charizard can one-hit KO pretty much anything in the meta, except for potentially Bastiodon. But aside from that, Charizard just doesn't care. If you set up your Charizard, it just blasts through everything. So with Infernape, that's not always true. And of course, with Infernape, you can't attack 2 turns in a row. So you can't just go, Flare Blitz and then the next turn Flare Blitz. There's never a way that you can do that. Maybe not never, but yeah, it's very difficult to do that. So it just seems like while Infernape is strong, it really just, to me, feels like the setup is not always worth it. And similar to where I was talking about Dialga, it just feels like other decks that are setting up are just kind of doing it better right now. But let me know, once again, if you disagree with this. I would be happy to hear it. I'd be excited to hear it, so let me know in the comments. At number 7, we have Pachirisu, or Pachirisu EX. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Let me know in the comments. Patchy, I'm going to call him Patchy. Patchy is a really interesting one. I think it has potential to be really powerful because between it, Pikachu, and Zapdos, you could have a deck with 3 basic EXs, which is really powerful because that means they don't require much setup. Of course, if you're playing Patchy, though, you are going to need to be playing tool cards, which limits some of the space in your deck. It makes it a little less easy to just slot this immediately in a Pikachu deck, because if you're playing Pikachu, Pachirisu, and Zapdos EX, you probably want maybe 1 more, maybe 2 more like basics, because otherwise you want to make sure you have a full bench for Pikachu. And then, again, you need the tool cards for Patchy. So it kind of feels like there's slightly conflicting ideas there. But I think Patchy's still great. I think there's a lot of unexplored potential. I mean, it does 80 damage, and the tool cards we have at the moment they're good, but they don't really further benefit the damage on Patchy. So I think that's the biggest reason why Patchy is just kind of a little bit lower here. But again, if you have a good deck with Pachirisu, let me know, because I would love to build one. I mean, my starting point is always Patchy, Pikachu, Zapdos, and then maybe like, I don't know, Dedenne or something, just because it can do some damage and rack up some paralysis. But we'll see. I actually kind of want to build that now that I'm talking about it. And then finally, we have the bottom tier. These are the ones that, while really cool, just really aren't seeing much play, and in the decks where they are seeing play, their win rates are really low. So number 8, we have Gallade EX. Gallade EX is it's cool, I like it a lot, but for the 50th time, it's a stage 2 evolution. It looks like Rampardos Lucario decks are performing better than Gallade Lucario decks. And that makes sense too, because Rampardos, it does massive damage, it does way more damage than Gallade, and if they knock out your Rampardos, they only get 1 point. Of course, Lucario pairs really nicely with both of these. And then Gallade, again, is a stage 2, but the first couple stages are a little awkward, because you want to be playing the new Ralts and the new Cresselia, because they require colorless energy to attack, and they're not that good. So the setup for Gallade can be a little awkward, and fighting is really not a type that excels at setting up, right? Water does that really well. Grass can do that really well. Like, there's typings that do that, but fighting, you just want to be doing damage. So, like, trying to set up your early pressure, like your Hitmonlee or Primeape or something, that can just be a really awkward situation. And next up, we have Licky EX, which is yet another card that just really has not been seeing that much play right now. And it's kind of understandable. It's only a stage 1, so it does not require that much setup as far as evolving, but it does require 4 colorless energy to attack, which is a lot. And I think that a lot of the decks that have been playing it with Dialga, because of course Dialga can put 2 energy on it at a time. But even that requires kind of a lot of setup, and it doesn't feel like it's truly worth it. Like, Licky can potentially do massive damage, but it does rely on coin flips. And it really just feels like if you want to rely on coin flips and do massive damage, why not just play Palkia with Misty? Like, that's so much easier to set up, right? So unfortunately, while Licky is really cool, it really just doesn't have enough of the support to make it good. And even if you want to play it with Dialga, it just feels like there are better things you can be playing with Dialga, sadly. And finally, we have Mismagius EX, which I think is probably, like, where Darkrai is the clear best EX from this set. I think Mismagius is clearly the worst. I have not seen a single Mismagius EX deck, And I think there's a lot of good reason for it. First of all, by itself, it's not that great. 2 energy for 70 damage, and it confuses the enemy, which is like kinda like paralysis, where they have to flip in order to see whether they attack or not. And that can be good, but you know, if you're just gonna try to set up that, like, if you know, there's just cards that can do more damage for less investment. And I think another huge thing is, first of all, it's a psychic type, and some of the best decks in the meta right now are dark type decks, so that's already a knock against it. Also, the other psychic, like the best psychic deck, despite the power of the Darkrai decks, even if you wanted to build a psychic deck right now, why wouldn't you just build Mewtwo EX, right? and if you're building Mewtwo EX, that means you're playing Gardevoir, you're probably just going to play Mew EX at that point, at which point you just don't have room to fit Misdreavus and Mismagius in your deck. So unfortunately, as sad as it is, Mismagius is just, I think, clearly the worst EX. And it's not just the card itself. The card itself is okay, it's not very good, but I think it's a result of the meta. And because the meta is so heavily skewed towards either just really fast setup that can do massive damage, or dark type Pokemon in general, Misdreavus and Mismagius just really suffer. But as always, let me know in the comments if you have any ideas for a really cool Mismagius deck, because I'd love to try it. I actually personally don't even own any copies of Mismagius EX, and I think it's a cool choice for EX. Like, I wasn't really expecting them to choose Mismagius as an EX. Personally, I would have preferred Honchkrow, but yeah, this is a cool Pokemon. Unfortunately, it's just not good enough. And finally, we have an honorable mention, Cresselia EX, which is pretty new as of this week. It has released with the little solo battle mission event where you can do solo battles and earn promo packs, and then in those promo packs there is a chance you can open Cresselia EX. So it's pretty new, and I don't know, some people might not even have 2 copies yet. Cresselia EX, I'm just going to talk about, since it hasn't really gotten a chance to like be included in decks yet, let's just talk about it itself. It has pretty good HP, and then its attack does 80 damage for 3. It's basically a counter to, not a counter, but it's basically like a mirror to Darkrai EX, which is, you know, in the lore, they're kind of counterparts of each other. Of course, true to the lore, Darkrai being a dark type and Cresselia being a psychic type, Darkrai is better than Cresselia simply because it's super effective against it, unfortunately. But Cresselia requires 3 energy, it does 80 damage, and its ability heals it 20 HP every time you put a psychic energy on it. Now, I think it says whenever you put a psychic energy on it and not from the energy zone, because I've seen when you pair it with Gardevoir, you can actually heal a lot on your Cresselia. You put your energy for the turn on it and heal 20, and then you use Gardevoir's ability. Well, yeah, I guess it could say from the energy zone, because Gardevoir puts it directly from the energy zone onto your Cresselia. So you could heal about 40 a turn if you're playing Gardevoir, which is really cool. And that gives you a little bit of a different angle. Like, obviously, Cresselia is less powerful than Mewtwo, but it gives you a little bit of a different angle where you're not doing as much damage as Mewtwo EX, but you have a lot more sustainability because you can just heal yourself for potentially 40 at each turn, at least 20 each turn, which can be very annoying to take down. So Cresselia is a cool Pokemon. I think it runs into a similar issue as like Mismagius EX and a lot of the psychic types we're seeing these days, which is Darkrai decks are running rampant and they're just going to do massive amounts of damage. Like, yes, you can heal 20 to 40 each turn, but the Darkrai is just going to do like, what, 120 to you in a turn, which is just absolutely massive. So yeah, I think Cresselia, it's a lot better than Mismagius EX, and I think there's something worth looking at there because it's a basic EX, as always. Those are always just really good. But again, compared to Darkrai, it is a little less good. So let me know what you think about my rankings in the comments. I would be happy to hear your thoughts. I think all of these EX Pokemon are great. I love how it's 4th gen based. You know, that's great. I really can't wait for the day where we get a 2nd or 3rd gen based set and we get to see all of those awesome EXs, like a Blaziken EX, hello, Swampert EX, man, I really cannot wait. Rayquaza EX, all right, I'm just fanboying at this point, but let me know what you think. Hope you have a great day. Please leave a like, please subscribe, and take care.